Hey guys, it's Jacqueline here from Sign Jacqueline. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today I'm going to show you how I use the paint inlays from IOD with the Gelli Arts gel printing plate. You're going to need a few things. First, of course, a jelly plate. I'm using the Gelli Arts 8x10 plate. You'll also need a couple of brayers, one to apply the paint onto the plate and one to brayer the paint inlay and paper. So you want this one clean. You'll also need a matte medium. I'm using the Pentart Decoupage, Varnish and Glue in matte. A few shades of paint that complement your chosen inlay. Stencils, texture mats for creating texture on your paper print. A4 copy paper, of course your paint inlay, a water mister bottle and a damp rag. I also use a hairdryer for speeding up the drying process and a palette knife to get the decoupage glue out and mix the paints together. So let's get started. To start, we need to apply the matte medium onto the plate. This is what our paint inlay will transfer into. I use the palette knife to get the decoupage glue onto the plate, and then I use the brayer to spread it out over the entire plate. You want to make sure that the plate is entirely covered in glue. If you find your brayer is slipping, remove some of the excess on a piece of scrap paper, and if you feel that there's not enough of the decoupage glue, add some more. So you'll see right now I'm just spreading that out over the entire plate. Once you have a good coverage of glue, you need to apply the paint inlay paint side down into the glue. So I use exactly the same process to apply it onto the plate as I would on a piece of furniture or a small project. First, I smooth with my hands, really making sure that it is adhered down into the glue. Then I use my brayer for extra contact into that glue, or the medium or the paint, whatever you're using. Once I'm happy with that, I then grab my mister and mist with it with water and then pat it down with my damp cloth. When I'm patting it down with my damp cloth, I really make sure that I don't rub at all. I found that can actually smear the paint, which is not what we want from the inlay. So I use an up and down patting motion, and then I wait for it to dry. Now, with this technique, the trick is to make sure that the decoupage glue is completely dry underneath that paint inlay. So you can use a hairdryer. You just want to keep that hairdryer moving, and you want to keep it on a low heat. So you'll see here I'm drying it and I keep that hairdryer moving and it's only on a low heat, and I make sure that it's completely dry before I try to remove the paper. So once the glue and the inlay are dry, I follow the same steps as normal to remove the paint inlay paper. If you do not mist or wet the paper, the paint won't release off that paper and the glue will come up with the paper off the jelly plate. So it is very important to mist the paper. I also like to pat it with my damp cloth too. So now it's time for the magic. I work from one corner and gently pull to remove the paper. You'll see here that I have a very bright and vibrant transfer of the inlay. I found by doing this technique on the jelly plate, it pulls off most of the paint and there is not much paint left for a second use of the paint inlay. So after I've removed the paper, I dry again with the hairdryer to be able to apply more paint. You can stop here and pull the print with this second coat of paint, but I want to add some visual interest, so I'm using an old doily to remove some of the paint from this layer. So taking some yellow, pink, crimson and a little bit of white paint, I'm just going to mix it with my palette knife on like an old plastic chopping board, and then I will apply it onto the jelly plate with the palette knife and then brayer it out to spread it out. Okay, so when you're happy with the coverage of your paint from spreading it out with your brayer, grab a stencil or some bubble wrap, some kitchen paper towel, or even an old doily like I'm using, and apply it into the paint. This will remove the paint off the plate where it touches, the doily touches the plate. And it will add some visual interest to the final print of the paper. So you'll see here that I'm patting it down. You don't want to use your brayer as the doily may shift and smudge the paint. And when I remove the doily, you'll see that it has left the impression. So the paint has come off on the doily and left some paint on the plate. Again, we need to dry this layer of paint so that we can put the final layer of paint on without smudging this layer. Okay, so lastly we're going to add the final layer of paint using the same method as earlier. This layer of paint is darker than the layer before to add some contrast between the lighter peachy pink and this pink. So I'm just using my palette knife to spread it out and mix it, and then I'm going to use my brayer to go over the entire surface of the jelly plate. You want to make sure that you're getting every bit of surface area on the jelly plate, as when we put the paper down, we need to make sure that we're pulling the entire print. And while the paint is still wet, I'm going to apply the copy paper to the plate so that we can pull the print. I'm using firm pressure in my brayer to make sure that the paper is contacting all the wet paint. So it's in contact with all the wet paint. And it is important to give the wet paint time to adhere to the dry layers, so that we can pull the print. And again, I dry with the hairdryer on a low temperature and keep that hairdryer moving. So once the paint and paper are dry, we're going to pull the paint. I gently pull from one corner and slowly remove the paper from the plate. How amazing does it look? So now I'm doing a happy dance because it looks just incredible. So I hope this little video helped you learn about how to apply the paint inlays onto the jelly plate and I can't wait to see what everyone does with it. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.